exploring the culinary traditions of the Valašský region of the Czech Republic. What may look like a pizza is actually a Czech dessert called a Valašský Frgál. This is a sweet yeasted dough crust topped with a variety of different traditional toppings, 4 of which include plum butter, pear butter, poppy seed, and sweet cheese, and I will be showing you all 4 of those today. And then those are topped with a sweet streusel topping. So let's get started and I'll show you how to make this very unique dessert. First, we're going to start with the fillings. I will be showing you 4 traditional flavors today: plum, pear, poppy seed, and sweet cheese. To make the plum filling, we're going to be making a traditional product called povidla, which is stewed down plums which reduce into a thick paste. This is a product quite common in Central and Eastern Europe, each country having its own slight variations, some adding sugar, others don't. In the Czech Republic, it is traditionally made without sugar, though you will find some families do add sugar today. Traditionally, it's made over a fire outside. The villagers would come together once or twice a year to spend the day doing this together, since it's labor intensive in that you need to constantly stir it to prevent burning. I'm making it in a more hands-off way by putting 5 pounds of sliced plums into a slow cooker with a splash of water and letting them stew down for, I think, what took me about 10 hours. I started these on high and lowered it to the low setting after about an hour. I stirred them every 30 to 45 minutes. Once they reached the stage where they had fallen apart and were covered in liquid, I switched it back to high and left the lid off to simmer and reduce down further. Once I felt like they couldn't be reduced anymore without burning, I pureed them with an immersion blender and transferred them to a container in the fridge. I also followed this exact same procedure with pears, except I added 2 star anise and half a teaspoon of cinnamon for flavor. I removed the anise before pureeing. I did find that the pears took longer than the plums. Traditionally, frgál is made with a pear filling made from dried pears, but I don't have access to dried pears where I live, and I learned that the fresh pear filling is also used in this dessert, so that is what I made for this video. You will see here that you're looking for something quite thick. As it falls off the spoon, it should hold together by a thread and then break. You may be able to can this, but look into your country's canning recommendations first, because you will notice we did not add any preserving agents like sugar and lemon juice. So please look into the safety of this before canning. Now we're going to move on to the sweet cheese filling. To a large bowl, add 250 grams or 8 ounces of farmer's cheese. This is a dry cottage cheese common in many Eastern European countries. Next, add 80 grams or a scant half cup of granulated sugar, 1 egg beaten, 1 tablespoon melted unsalted butter, and the zest of 1 lemon and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Beat this all together until well combined. Put this in a bowl and cover and refrigerate until you're ready to use it. To make the poppy seed filling, add 125 grams or 3/4 of a cup of ground poppy seeds to a saucepan over medium heat. To this, add 125 milliliters or half a cup of whole milk, 80 grams or half a cup of sugar, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, the zest of 1 lemon, half a teaspoon of vanilla, and a tablespoon of unsalted butter. Whisk to combine and let it bubble for a couple of minutes, stirring often. Before taking it off the heat, stir in half a tablespoon of semolina for thickening. Pour this into a bowl and cover and set aside until ready to use. Now that we've made the fillings, we'll move on to the dough. You're going to be adding 150 to 200 milliliters or 2/3 to 1 cup of milk to the dough. Add some of that milk to your mixer and stir in 15 grams or 4.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast, plus 2 tablespoons of your flour and 1 tablespoon of your powdered sugar. Let it sit 5 minutes until the yeast blooms. Then add the rest of your 300 grams or 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 200 grams or 1 cup of coarse flour, 120 grams or 1 cup of powdered sugar, 120 grams or 8.5 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter, a pinch of salt, and the zest of 1 lemon. I'm using dried lemon peel here because I miscalculated how many lemons I needed for this recipe. Also add in 2 egg yolks. Knead all of that until it comes away from the sides of the bowl. My dough was really sticky, so I ended up adding another couple tablespoons of all-purpose flour. You probably noticed that I mentioned coarse flour. This is a type of flour from the Czech Republic that is very similar in texture to semolina. The difference is that semolina has a much higher gluten content than Czech coarse flour. I will link the US-based Czech supplier that I used to buy the flour, but if you end up substituting with semolina, you'll want to avoid kneading it for too long because of the high gluten content. I can't vouch for how it will turn out with semolina because I did not test the recipe with it. Let your dough rise until it doubles. It may take quite a while because of how enriched this dough is. While we're waiting, we'll make the streusel. Combine 125 grams or 3/4 of a cup of coarse flour with 100 grams or 7 tablespoons of chilled unsalted butter and 100 grams or 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. Work in the butter with your hands until you have the consistency of a cookie dough. You could also do this in a food processor if you prefer. Cover and set aside at room temperature until ready to use. Now take the risen dough and divide it into 4 equal sections. Each of mine ended up weighing about 250 grams. Form them into a ball and place in a covered bowl until ready to roll out. Now roll out each disc on a piece of parchment paper. The parchment paper is really helpful so you can turn it each time you roll to help form a perfect circle. I made mine to fit the width of my baking sheets. The Valašský Frgál comes from the region of Wallachia in the Czech Republic. The recipe dates back to 1826 and has been granted special EU protection, meaning only tarts made in this region can be sold under the name Valašský Frgál. They also have to meet certain standardizing requirements, such as not combining fillings. There are some variations of the recipe that include rolling farmer's cheese into the dough for a sort of stuffed crust. But according to the Czech government website, the traditional product does not have cheese in the dough. For the fillings, I'm starting with the plum. Spoon it on and spread it until it's about 1/2 inch from the edge. In hindsight, I could have spread it a little bit further, but I was worried it would spread in the oven, which it didn't end up doing. Then sprinkle on the streusel generously. Traditionally, either a streusel is sprinkled on or gingerbread crumbs. I did not have any of those on hand, so I made the streusel instead. Then repeat the same process with the pear, the cheese, and the poppy seed. Cover these and let rise for about 30 to 45 minutes or until the dough looks slightly puffed. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius for 15 to 17 minutes or until golden on the edges. Let cool on a rack and then slice to enjoy. I hope you enjoyed seeing me make that. I had a lot of fun exploring this dessert and trying out making traditional products like the Poppyseed and the pear butter. That was a lot of fun, and I'm gonna do that again just for my own personal family because we really enjoyed the plum butter and the pear butter. They were really delicious and they're really nice spread over a piece of rye bread. I have 4 little slices of the desserts, so I'm going to try them for you today. Let's see what they taste like. I'm going to start with the plum. That's really delicious. I think what surprised me the most is how soft the dough is. I was expecting it to be sort of hard and crunchy because that's what it appeared to look like when I took it out of the oven. But as you see, it's kind of soft and bendable, and it's really pleasant, paired with the tartness of the plum and then the sweet streusel topping on top. All the flavors really balance themselves, the sweet and the tart. Let's try the pear now. I love those flavors of the pear with the tiny bit, a hint of cinnamon and the star anise. They're very subtle, but you can taste them, and the flavors remind me of European Christmas flavors. Let's try the cheese now. That's delicious. I love farmer's cheese filled desserts. They're so pleasant tasting in my opinion, and they always usually have a little bit of lemon zest in them. They're lightly sweet with a little hint of lemon, and it's really good. Let's try the poppy seed. I love poppy seed desserts. It's a very European flavor, not something that you really taste here in the United States very often. If you've never had a poppy seed filled dessert, and I don't mean like an American dessert where they have sprinkle poppy seeds in, such as like a lemon poppy seed muffin, you don't really taste the poppy seed flavor. It's more of just the crunch of the seed. But in European desserts that are filled with poppy seed, if you've never had that flavor, it's a very unique flavor and it's very hard to describe. I can just tell you from personal experience that it's an acquired taste. You either love it or you hate it. I absolutely adore poppy seed filled desserts. I love the flavor. My husband, on the other hand, thinks they're awful. So if you didn't grow up with poppy seed, you might not like this, but I love it. I think it's great. If you learned something in today's video and enjoyed what you saw, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to have you here. I bake every week different European recipes and share with you the history and traditions associated with them. While you're waiting for my next video, check out this one, and I'll see you next time.